Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting. All right, so coming to you today with the next lesson in the Introduction to Sales and Communications course, which is just a brief history of sales. So essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a bit of an understanding of my interpretation of sales throughout, from around the 40s and 50s to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and now. So essentially, the way sales has molded and shifted and transformed over time throughout history has been either with technology or cultural development. So shifts in culture and ways of interacting and ways of communicating and how we communicate has, influenced different ways that we sell and different ways that businesses interact with their consumers and their customers. So a thing to think about is, well, before we had telephones widely abundant, okay, a lot of sales was either through letters, so handwritten letters, or it was through face-to-face. And what this meant is we leveraged a lot more on the relationships and the reputation that was built within each salesperson, opposed to, nowadays where it's a lot more transactional based. So in the past, it was heavy on relationship based sales, and now it's heavy on transaction-based sales. And if we think about it like this, it goes into the amount of effort that is put into developing the relationship, but also in the consumer. So how long is that consumer going to do business with us? And, how much do we invest into really understanding each of our customers, each of our consumers, throughout the entire process of bringing them to become one of our newest customers. So if we think about it like this, and we just take a few examples and look at, for example, vacuum cleaner salesmen back in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, in America, vacuum cleaner salesman was very, very big industry, but it also set precedent for door-to-door sales, that door-to-door, interaction, you know, being able to build a relationship with a potential buyer who doesn't know you or your brand, and sort of explain and demonstrate the value of the product or the benefits of the product to the consumer, okay, or potential customer, and sort of how we went about it. So it was heavy on demonstration and education. Now, it doesn't mean that all the salespeople were looking to educate, but when we're talking about new technology, okay, and trying to sell it into the culture or society, what we have to do is we have to formally educate them on why it's more valuable. And a big selling point that was used was the effort and the ease that it took and how it would reduce workloads by having an electric vacuum cleaner opposed to using a broom and a dustpan. Okay, so what they would have to do is they would have to show the consumer, okay, through a demonstration of how easy and how powerful this technology was and the benefits that they would have. Okay. And then we shift into, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, where there was a move from now, and this isn't to say that door-to-door sales ended, door-to-door sales still exists right now. So there was a shift from going door-to-door to telephone sales. And this was very, very prevalent in the financial industries, in, the stock markets and things like that, where we now have the ability to interact with a volume of more people. So volumes of more people easier, without having to go out and physically see everyone. Okay. So we're able to move into being able to speak with, hundreds of people a day, opposed to when we're doing door to door, where we might get to speak to 20, 30, 40, 50. So the shift in the mentality was when we have limited, leads, limited interactions with potential customers, we have to increase our performance and increase our ability to relate to them so that we can maximize on each interaction. And then when we've shifted to technology allowing us to interact with more people, it became less about developing, each of the interactions as it was about numbers, of making more calls, of being quicker. And a big shift is in communication. So when we're in person, we have body language, tonality, and language patterns. When we're selling via the phone, we only have our tonality and language patterns to influence and interact and build relationships. So what this meant is this meant more creative ways of using scripting and using language patterns to create perceived value. Because we cannot physically demonstrate in front of people, we must, create perceived value through the language that we use. So what would happen is we would bring down the presentation to just being not the bare bones, but essentially we're not going out there and we're not demonstrating to people, for example, how it works. We're sort of just briefly explaining it and then focusing and leveraging more on the outcomes and benefits that the potential consumer will get. So as time goes on and as technology shifts, also another thing that was seen is the shift in the attention span of the consumers. So an important aspect of this is to understand that as the consumer's attention span minimizes, it means that we have to be more effective in shorter periods of time. So it gave rise to more strategic language and more influential language. Now, the unfortunate thing is ethical regulations and ethics wasn't always followed by everyone. So what this has done is over the time, and when we get to about the 90s and the early 2000s, there is a lot of distrust from buyers for salespeople. Buyers believe that salespeople will manipulate and mislead them and sort of convince them, like a snake oil salesman, of the benefits, and then the products wouldn't deliver. But then we also look at product development. Earlier, it was more relationship based. So we wanted to provide high quality products that last a long time. And then the shift in business as it corporatized became more of, let's try and get as many repeat business or repeat customers. So what happened was manufacturing shifted to lowering quality to where we stopped using, for example, steels. Kids' toys weren't made out of steel anymore or wood. They were made out of plastics, which broke at a more rapid rate and deteriorated more rapidly. Okay. The same can be said in car manufacturing. The same can be said in, white goods manufacturing. As manufacturing became more complicated and they, invested less in quality parts, it increased, and opened up new industries, which were around, maintenance, repair, and all of this. So as time's gone on and the culture has shifted, it has eroded and damaged the trust between consumers and businesses. So if you notice it in your own life at the moment, there is, a lot of mistrust. If you're walking through the shopping fair or the shopping center, and there's a salesperson there and they go to, sell you. And an easy way to see this is fundraiser salespeople. So the people that, are out there for the charities trying to raise funds. Okay. There's a lot of mistrust between consumers and them because of tactics used. So a lot of consumers will seek to avoid them, avoid eye contact, avoid engaging with them, and all of this to sort of avoid that interaction. So that's an important thing that you've got to understand, is that in sales, when you're looking to sell products, the majority of your potential buyers are going to look to avoid you because they do not trust you. So it's all about building relationships and building trust. And as time's gone on, we've sort of come back a little bit towards really investing in relationship building and building long-term relationships with potential buyers. And sort of as we went through, the 90s to the 2000s, then we had the introduction of, email marketing, which is just written letter marketing. So it's the same as written letter marketing as it is, just to the same that, nowadays with our video sales, so selling through Zoom, selling over video and all of this, okay, this is just door-to-door sales that is transformed into being more accessible to a larger portion of people. So it's sort of going back to that door-to-door sales feel where, it's not door-to-door where we're just going out and knocking and, hey, how's it going? It's more about a combination between marketing and then in the when using the technology like Zoom and things like that, that's where it's a bit more where we're able to demonstrate, where we're able to show people. So that's an important thing, because as time goes on, as culture shifts, as the way in which we communicate changes, it's going to become, more and more altered in terms of, for example, the language from the 1940s to now has altered. We use a lot more slang and modern language and things like that. So that's an important thing to understand, is as time goes on, how we sell and how we interact will shift and stay aligned with societal norms of how society communicates and interacts with each other. So this is an important thing to understand, because all of these factors and everything that has led up to it has created the environment that we find ourselves in now. So, for example, because there was unethical companies in the 90s and early 2000s that were heavy on profit maximization and very heavy on, cutting costs and cutting manufacturing quality standards, we can see that there's been a shift to where now there is always an expectation that quality is not there. So we have to put more effort and more energy into demonstrating and educating a consumer about the high quality of the product or offering. So if we understand this is just how it naturally goes, the natural flow of it, because essentially sales is just communication and education. If someone doesn't understand and comprehend the quality of the product or the benefits of the product, it's very difficult to communicate that to them. So it's sort of this process of educating potential buyers and then effectively communicating the, benefits, the quality, what they're going to get to them. But it's also the perceived, congruency, or the perceived, like how a potential buyer perceives me and the salesperson, or how a potential buyer perceives the business. So a lot of investment goes in for businesses on business and brand reputation. So we've seen this shift from in the 90s and the 2000s where, companies didn't really care too much about their brand reputation. They cared more about profit maximization, to now they've seen that it is really important for brand recognition and brand reputation, because that heavily influences, potential buyers. Because in business, like the barriers to entry for new business are so low in modern times that there is an overflow of competing businesses. So it's all about separating. And that's a key thing to understand as a salesperson, is your goal is to separate from the mainstream. If the mainstream is low quality products, cheap, low quality offers, then we want to separate by having high quality products that are expensive with high quality offers. And we can see this shift between the competing business models, in terms of some try to be the price leader, so the lowest price, and others try to be the highest price. And it's sort of like, these are the competing ways in which we do it. So one develops heavily on relationships and their reputation, whereas the other develops heavily on their price reduction and their ability to bring products to market at the lowest price. Okay. So it's important to understand this, because this is how we can understand the sort of psychological makeup of potential buyers, by being able to look in the industry that we're in and understand, where do we sit, or where does our company sit in comparison to competition? Are we on the higher end of being more expensive with higher quality products and offerings, or are we on the lower end where it's more transactional based, where we're trying to just generate massive amounts of transactions at lower price points with lower quality products? All right. Well, I hope this helps you out and gives you a bit of an understanding about, more about sales in general, but how sales has evolved. All right. Well, you guys have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Bye.